Welcome to another OCD Recovery Instagram Live. I'm going to be doing a question and answers format on here today. Feeling a lot better today, considering yesterday I was up till 7 a.m. in the morning watching that Wilder Fury fight. So it feels good to have that behind me. I'm going to be talking specifically about I want to get into questions on these themes because they don't often get covered, and people message me and say, Rob, why don't you cover these topics more? So let's get these topics covered today, okay? Existential OCD, people say I don't cover that enough. ROCD, I do tend to cover quite a lot. People used to say I didn't cover it enough, so I've been covering that a lot recently. Sensory motor OCD, so existential, sensory motor. What was the other one that people said that I don't cover enough? Harm OCD I cover a lot. POCD and harm OCD linked together I cover a reasonable amount. Let me think, what was the other one that people often say? I think, the homosexuality OCD. That one is a third one that people want to hear more about. So if you ask me you can ask me broad questions on anything. Absolutely anything, that's what this account's all about, covering any questions that you have about OCD, anxiety, all of that combination. But I would like to try and focus on some of the main topics today. So just ask the questions in the comments below, any questions you have about OCD that you want to ask me, and I will cover those now. I'll get talking about a particular thing for the moment whilst I'm waiting for some questions to come in. So I'll talk a little bit about a topic that I cover quite a bit, but I think needs more attention, is with solipsism. So solipsism being the fear of being the only person who's real and the rest of the world being sort of robots or a sort of brain in a vat situation where you're just a brain in a sort of mad professor's lab that's probed creating a simulation reality, which is our experience of how we see things today based on that, which is a common philosophical philosophical idea that has been around for a very long time, that we do not know, our reality, our consciousness differs compared to different people's view. We have no idea what somebody else's consciousness is like. We can only vouch for our own consciousness. We can only see that we might be the only conscious person. Everyone else might be a robot, a simulation, a sort of Jim Carrey, Truman Show-like scenario. So I think in those, obviously with existential, it works very well at unlatching with getting used to uncertainty, being used to the uncomfortable and feeling it detached there, with not needing to know the answer, as you haven't needed to know the answer since you've been a child, and that question may have risen its head, may not have risen its head, but you haven't needed an answer, so you were used to uncertainty in that situation. Now, in relation to solipsism, for me, it really got a hold. Because it found a way, so it latched. So every single thing I thought was fake, every single thing I thought wasn't real, I thought I was in this simulation, felt trapped in this simulation. So it was very difficult with that position. I got under it using Albert Ellis, the founder of CBT's unconditional life acceptance, of seeing that even if I was trapped in this solipsism type world, I could still enjoy my life on my goals, on the things that make me happy, i.e. being play sport, lie in the sun, listen to music, travel, do whatever. I could still do all that even without the human connection. And like watching a movie, something that I added myself in here, like watching a movie, I came up with the view that when we watch movies, obviously we watch them as actors. People on the movies, they're just actors, and we get lost in the plot because we forget they're acting and it's all fake, but we still enjoy it. Well, that would be the same in a solipsism world. We would still enjoy our life, even though we weren't partaking with a being in a way that was interacting with us how we wanted it to, on that level of deep connection. We could still enjoy it the same as when we watch a movie or a play. So it wouldn't make any difference. 90% of the time we'd be convinced we weren't in a solipsism world, so we would enjoy our life regardless. So I think that's a very important part of the solipsism recovery. Learning to see that you can actually accept yourself and your life as you are and be happy and enjoy things even in that position which you are, not needing to be in an alternative position which is what OCD is always trying to come up with, that, oh, you need something to change, something needs to be different, this is a disaster if you can't connect with your loved ones, your mother and so on, where it actually isn't. It's something you can stand. It's not the end of the world. It's not the worst thing you could ever imagine. Because you can always imagine something else. It's not out of this world bad. It's only, it's only your perspective of how bad it is. Realistically, you could stand it, make peace with it, and I could be completely at peace with it. And then OCD went, you don't care about that anymore, and then it went for something else. So that's how I got under it. With a good understanding of that, and then later getting used to being uncertain and interacting less with the anxiety and creating that in a distance, which obviously made the difference with so many of the themes. Okay, let's go back and look at some of these questions. Some advice on how to stop overthinking every emotion. I understand the fear of fear again, but every emotion makes me feel on edge. I come a long way. Why do you fear every emotion? Do you really love your children? Are you sure this happiness is real? Why do you need this happiness to be real? What is the difference between OCD and guilt and just normal guilt? Why do you need to know the difference between the two? You are not going to get a difference between the two which will calm you down and bring you relief, because OCD is obviously, it's going to keep saying that you need more. OCD is going to keep saying that you're uncertain, this time is different, so you'll never be able to get certainty. As Voltaire said, certainty is absurd. So you're never going to be able to achieve certainty here to bring relief. You're going to be able to get that's a form of reassurance down that cycle, so that will not work for you. You will have to come at that from the perspective of learning to live with both uncertainty and the unconditional self-acceptance, which specifically gets under chronic guilt. For me, that was the thing that released the chronic guilt in relation to harm OCD, in relation to if I'd committed a murder in the past or anything like that. Getting under the chronic guilt was done through unconditional self-acceptance. So that's something you want to read up about. Greatly covered by the founder of CBT, Albert Ellis, in the first book on my reading list, How to Stubbornly Refuse to Make Yourself Miserable by Ellis, and The Myth of Self-Esteem by Ellis. Two great books for covering unconditional self-acceptance. Okay, let's have a look. How to come to terms with eternal pain or suffering after death. Yes, that was one that used to hold me for a long time. I used to find that very difficult. Eternal pain obviously doesn't apply to a rational scale. You can't use that because rational implies that something can't be, only within scientific boundaries can go up to a certain level of bad. Well, eternal, that breaks that scientific scale because it doesn't make any scientific sense. And obviously, it doesn't make any sense in reality. But this won't calm OCD down with things such as the reason it doesn't make sense in reality is pain is only needed to keep a human body alive to protect it from having accidents and so on. So there'd be no need for eternal pain after the brain is dead. And pain is the only thing that we can think of as so scary. There could be other things more scary, and another sort of version of the universe or another sort of version of consciousness, whatever. We don't know, whatever way we're thinking. So it's the only thing we can think of. Internal pain, you can't apply the rational, but you can apply the rational thinking to how you think about each moment. So in life, there's no point in thinking 5,000 steps ahead, which is irrational because you're missing out on the moment. So you can still apply the rational thinking to moving forward and being in the now, like not needing to know 1,000 moves ahead that might never ever happen or never exist or never come into existence in one way or another. We can feel that and see that is very rational. Think, we're thinking 1,000 moves ahead in other galaxies that are never going to happen. It's completely irrational to dive that far. However, that didn't still release it for me. What released it for me was complete uncertainty, not knowing, just completely getting comfortable with not knowing and just letting go of internal control, something that takes time to feel and do, and then seeing that actually we don't need that internal control like we think we do, and I'm just going along with this ride and letting it take me which way I can, and that takes time to feel and experience, but you do notice it as you start breaking down irrational beliefs more and more. It releases and then it comes off and off and off until you feel more and more free. Took me a time though. I will cover that in a lot more detail because I come at that from many angles in the coaching sessions to get under that. Okay, let's have a look at these questions. I want the happiness to be real because it used to be real before I got OCD, and it brings me back to being depressed. I was just wanting to leave my kids and die. I guess I just don't want to feel that way. If you're trying to chase a feeling like with relationship OCD, the feeling of love, it's going to be pulled away from you by OCD. So it's about getting comfortable not feeling that. And then that's when it will come back, as well as having a look at any other things that are keeping you in that state, any other feared scenarios. Way again, so when I feel off, I like to latch why. I'm not sure how to stop that. Unable to see my OCD therapist for weeks. Well, you're scared of feeling off. It's fear of being anxious. You're scared of being stuck. So you're always checking to see why you feel the way you do. So it's about getting comfortable feeling stuck. It's about getting comfortable feeling anxious. It's about getting comfortable just experiencing how you're feeling now and seeing that you can wear that like an uncomfortable coat, and you can be okay with that situation and whatever feelings you are feeling. Do you ever feel anxiety from thoughts? Absolutely not. I couldn't care less what thought comes in any form. You unconditional self and life acceptance means that you become less. It applies to reality as well. Few things really cause me chronic anxiety because I can see them rationally. Concern, yes, but not chronic anxiety. Definitely concern in situations, healthy concern, but not chronic anxiety. That was the cycle I was in for a very long time, but luckily I am not in now after a lot of work, practice and time passing. But it took a long time for that to happen, to be in that situation, and I had to chip away at those irrational beliefs from many angles to get it to release. All right, guys, see you on the next Instagram Live. I'll see you then. Take it easy.